All right, here now to weigh in is senior fellow at Defense Priorities and host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube, retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis. You are back, Lieutenant Colonel. Thank you so much for your time. So Democratic senators really got into some fiery back and forth. We heard a bit of it there as we led into Kelly. Let's listen briefly to a bit more from Virginia Senator Mark Warner.
This was the case of a military officer or an intelligence officer, and they had this kind of behavior, they would be fired. I think this is one more example of the kind of sloppy, careless, incompetent behavior, particularly towards classified information, that this is not a one-off or a first-time error.
All right, Lieutenant Colonel. So I do want to get into what happens next, but what was your initial reaction to the news of this group chat?
Well, look, all of it, of course, centers on the mistake of allowing someone who wasn't in the national security upper echelon onto the app. I mean, you know, we all have apps, and if you hit the wrong name or whatever, you're going to bring the wrong one up. Obviously, for something like this, it was a major error. But I mean, you know, classic fat finger, or you thought it was Jeff Smith and it was actually Jeff Goldberg, et cetera. We don't know how. I'd like to find that out myself. But the fact is that I think it was in just December of last year where the CISA, which kind of oversees the authorization for using classified information, secure information. Let me distinguish between that. And it said that it is authorized for senior members of the government to use signals specifically because it is encrypted. It's not classified, but it is encrypted, so it's hard to get at because in communication. That doesn't talk about classified information, however. That still has to be on a separate system that cannot be broached. You can't have those accidents. One of the reasons why you have it like that, so you can't have a mistake like that. Whether or not there actually was classified information, that is going to be the big question. Right now, all we have is Goldberg's claim because they haven't released that part. And you saw the members of the panel there were saying that it wasn't classified information, but it's going to be a mess one way or the other.
Yeah, and that's very fair to say. All we have right now is Goldberg's claim. We know the press secretary is saying that no classified information was in the chat. What do you think about the way the White House is responding? And do you think we need to hear from President Trump directly on this?
You know, I suppose eventually, I mean, why not? But it is a big issue. But it's more of an embarrassment than anything else because at least what's been reported, the bits and pieces that have been reported look like normal back and forth. In terms of the conduct of the call itself, that's what you expect of the senior leaders. That's why they have these kinds of channels. So they need something like that that's not going to end up on the front pages of the Atlantic so that they can have free and frank conversations. But it has to be done right, and that means that you cannot talk about any classified information. That has to be done, even if it's inconvenient, on the classified system. Typically, that means in a secure classified environment, a SCIF, they call it. That's where all of those have to go on. Some of the people, and I think it was Hegseth, has said some of those conversations did happen at the SCIF level, at the high-end level, they call it. But whether some of it was inadvertently put on that is a question that I think we need answers to.
All right, and so Lieutenant Colonel, you know, many times investigations will be launched. Not a lot always actually comes out of them. Sometimes it can take months, sometimes it can take longer. Do you think someone will be fired? Do you think someone should be fired? Do you think someone should be disciplined?
You know, that's a tricky question because on the one hand, I've been pretty impressed with Mike Waltz so far, and that appears to be the guy that made the mistake. I mean, as far as I can see, it was a hugely embarrassing mistake. A fat finger that should, you know, never have happened. But I don't know that you should fire the guy over that. If he's not doing his job right, or if he's failing in the functions where he's supposed to do, then I think that might be a firing offense. What I've seen so far is something you just got to say, dude, you got to be careful with this stuff. But not that he should be fired over. That's my view of it.
Yeah, and I mean, it does appear to be a huge mistake. Again, right now we have the claims from Jeff Goldberg, as you know, so correctly pointed out. You also mentioned the fact, you know, we know this happened on the commercial messaging app Signal. You talked about it a bit in your first answer. Do you think the usage of this app should be banned or should be forced to stop when it comes to government officials based on this alleged incident?
Well, they got to have something, and that's the reason for the CISA allowing that, because that was one that is encrypted. And again, if not for the inadvertent adding somebody outside the system onto it, if that hadn't been done, then everything would have been fine because it is encrypted. That's the reason why it was chosen. It was one of the ones that are chosen. I don't think that you want to, to throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing and then go overboard and trying to prevent these things from happening again. You just have to be a lot more careful about what you do. And I'm sure that there'll be training, et cetera. But these senior officials need this capability. We don't want to take that away from them.
And my last question for you, Lieutenant Colonel, some lawmakers are alleging that there is no doubt Russia and China, if not other countries, other adversaries, were monitoring all of this. Do you think that's likely the case?
That's a question that I would like an answer to authoritatively from the intelligence system. The reason why they chose that platform for these kinds of sensitive but not classified conversations is because it is encrypted. So it's very difficult, even for the U.S., to hack inside of some of these. If they discover and find out conclusively that actually, no, it's not safe, then obviously that day is the last day it's ever used again. But if it is, then they need to find something that is secure, that can't be hacked into, or has some additional protocols, maybe additional safety measures.
All right, well, Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis weighing in for us. Thank you.
Always my pleasure.